and we are back on the couch for another episode of How to Get Away with the JD. And you know what happens when we get on this couch? We gotta talk. I gotta speak the truth to you guys. So another red table moment, I guess, if you will. We're gonna be talking about mentorship in an episode I like to call Pick Me, Choose Me, Mentor Me. Kind of like my girl Grey in Grey's Anatomy, but without the whole needy, whiny, crying message behind it. Grey's Anatomy, great show. If you don't know what episode I'm talking about, definitely start your binge on Grey's Anatomy. We're in quarantine. You ain't got nothing else to do anyway because I know you're not studying. But please study. But yes, today we're talking about mentorship because I, in the past couple of weeks, have received questions about, interestingly, what is an effective mentor, how to start building those relationships, and different things of that nature when it comes to mentorship. It actually spawned from two questions I received while doing some work for some other people, where they asked, point blank period, how many black men do you know or did you know before starting law school who you could look up to and talk to and have conversations with? And I had to sit and think for a minute, and I was like, well, you know, and I said, you know what? In reality, before I started this journey, right, before I got to where I am now, I didn't know any. I had zero black men that I could look to, talk to, and like really get like that navigation of life and like what it's like to be a black man in the field of law before starting. And now that I am almost done with the law school half, because I mean, like, the legal profession is going to be a longer stint for me than 3 years of law school. But yeah, I honestly can confidently say I only have about 3 black men that I can talk to. And even within those 3 black men, there's a different approach that I have with each one of them because it commands a different level of, I won't say respect, but their approaches and their philosophies in life are different. So it really just depends on how that looks, right? But I wanted to talk to you guys today about mentorship because in having that conversation and listening to like what the root of the problem is, I realized a lot of people aren't too sure how to go about the process, 1, of finding a mentor, but then 2, how to build and maintain a relationship when you find somebody you think you want to be your mentor. And before I start this episode, I do want to put the caveat out there that while I do believe there are people who can be effective mentors or people whose intentions are good, not everyone is fit or everyone has the ability, the accessibility, if you will, to be a mentor. And some people aren't ready to be mentored. And that's a conversation that you need to have with yourself personally to understand if you are or not willing or receptive to what other people would have to tell you. Because let me be blunt. I'm not a person who sugarcoats, and I appreciate people who don't sugarcoat with me. I need people to call me out on my bull. And if you're somebody who's hypersensitive or have these different things, there are people out here who are probably a little bit more able to coax and stroke, but I I am not one of them. And I had to tell somebody this maybe a week ago when they had asked me some questions about mentoring them. I like to be straight to the point, so we're gonna get straight to the point and dive right in on today's topic. So in thinking about mentorship, I realized one of the biggest misconceptions about mentoring, however you want to look at it, depending on the side of the coin you're on, is that you have to wait for somebody to like pluck you out of the spot, right? A lot of people sit around and they're like okay, you know, eventually somebody's going to come, or I'm going to meet somebody who's like, you know, just what I'm doing, what I want to do, how I'm feeling, we're going to hit it off. The passive approach, I mean, I guess can work depending on the situation, but 9 times out of 10, 8 times, I'll say 8 times out of 10, 9 times a little strong. 8 times out of 10, being passive when looking for mentorship, no matter who you are, no matter what you look like, isn't going to work. Especially if you're looking for people who are practicing. They're busy. Like, you think you're busy in law school. Law school is the pregame to practice. You're busy once you're in practice. So having to, if you think that people are literally at their day jobs like, oh, I want to go back and reach out to so-and-so or go to this school and find such and such, you're kidding yourself. So the process to being mentored in and of itself is an active one. It's constantly changing, evolving. You have to put yourself out there. And I know that's probably the biggest and time consuming part of the whole thing is, how do I market myself? How do I put myself out there? How do I get vulnerable enough to be in a space where I'm letting this person know, hey, I'm interested in, building this relationship and getting to know you and all this other stuff. So yeah, biggest misconception there. You don't have to ask somebody right away like, hey, hi, my name is Phelan and I want you to mentor me. What? What? That's bold. Now, I mean, like, hey, if you got it in you, cool. But that's bold. Most of us, me included, are not that bold. We are not that straightforward, and that is okay. I think that is I think that's like one of those things that people don't talk about, right? Like, everyone's approach to life is different. So of course, everybody's approach and philosophy to when it comes to finding and becoming mentored or being a mentor is going to be different. So it just depends, right? I hate the legal response, but it depends. So we're going to talk a little bit about how this works in a couple of steps. And the first step I want to talk about is finding someone that you want to be like. Dangerous game. I know they say like don't meet your heroes or whatever, but in order for mentorship to work, me personally, I feel like there has to be a commonality, a thread, something that gets the ball rolling, right? So when you're looking, depending on where you're looking, you want to look to see, who do I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years, or where do I want to be in the next 5 to 10 years? And then from there, start looking at people in either the industry you want or people who know people in the industry you want, and get to know them. And when I say get to know them, I'm not saying like, oh, I'm strategically looking at so-and-so and I'm going to latch onto them and use them. That word, using people, is a very, very, very dangerous line to tote when it comes to the aspect of mentorship and being conscious of. And we'll talk. That made me think of something. We're on the couch, so we gonna get there. I'm gonna get a little vulnerable with y'all, but know that when you're in this initial stage of trying to find somebody like that you want to be like, that doesn't mean they're the blueprint. That does not mean you have to be the carbon copy of them. You might find somebody more interesting or somebody more relevant to what you want to do just by looking at somebody else. So never close a door for yourself by doing that. The next thing I would definitely say is study whoever you're interested in, because you'll find that people seem interesting either when you first encounter them or like this is the day of technology, or via like their LinkedIn profiles, different things like that. They check all these different boxes, right? They may not actually check the personal boxes for you, and that is okay. I think it's important to at least have the ability to look ahead and do some research, figure out who this person is, what this person has done, and those different things of that nature, in order for you to really get a better understanding of their journey. You won't ever really understand somebody's journey until you talk to them, but it kind of like cuts the time for both of you, for the person looking for a mentor and the person maybe particularly interested in mentoring, that you've done your research, you know a little bit about them. You're not asking like the questions that can easily be found on the internet, right? You're not wasting each other's time. You're getting to the point of, hey, I saw you did this, or hey, I noticed this on your resume, XYZ. Can you tell me a little bit about that? How did you overcome this? It's one thing to be proactive and do your research. Somebody told me this a while ago. There's a difference between being a creep stalker and doing like your actual research for what you want to do. So tote the line. Don't hop on somebody's Facebook or Instagram and start like don't. Again, there are lines to these things, but this goes into my next point. Make the ask after you've done your research, after you've looked and you've spotted like, okay, I like these key qualities, or I like these experiences that this person has. Ask them if they're available. Well, COVID, so if they're available for like a Zoom call, a phone call, depending on the person or wherever it is, you can also say, are you interested in like grabbing coffee while it's still pretty decent outside? Are you interested in going to lunch outside or something like that? You have to put, and this is honestly, pause. This is the hardest part for anybody looking for a mentor. This is the hardest part for me, at least. Putting yourself out there. It is hard enough to sit in class, be cold called, talk to your professors. If you go to office hours, work against your fellow students, all the other things that law school has. To then be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there to somebody you either have never met before, or somebody who controls like for instance your teachers, deans, and all those other things. To put yourself in a vulnerable position says a lot. And if you do it the right way, you actually be very surprised on the amount of fruit that it bears. But then also to that point, if people see who you are, some people naturally gravitate and latch on to you and want you to succeed. And I think that personally is the best form of mentorship, where there's this natural progression. It doesn't seem forced. It doesn't seem stocky. And you're just like, oh, well, I have to impress this person, or I have to not let this person down, right? I mean, that kind of comes with the territory, but we're all human. We're all bound to make mistakes. Whoever you're looking at as a potential mentor, I promise you, if you sat down and talked to them, they can name maybe 5 off top mistakes that they have had in their journey that they either wish they could go back and do, or would give you enough caution to say, hey, I did this. Make sure you pay attention to this, or, X, Y, and Z. So from there, after you make like the initial ask, whatever that looks like for you, it just depends. Evaluate the conversation afterwards. Evaluate how that person made you feel. What did you talk about? Like, was it a fruitful conversation? Do you feel that this person potentially has your best interest at heart? Do you feel like there was smoke and mirrors? And I mean, again, take this with a grain of salt, especially if this is your first meeting with the person, because not everyone puts their cards on the table in the beginning. Some people have to fill you out to understand who you are, where you are, what basically it's like an interview kind of. You're really trying to get this position of, hey, hi, help me, I know nothing, teach me, pick me. So it really just, it's an interesting dance. It's an interesting line that you told when it comes to that. But I think at least for me, the better mentors, I won't say best, the better mentors that I have are the ones that after a conversation, I've left feeling better about myself. And sometimes I also felt a little shitty because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And it was a reality check for me. If you don't have, and this goes back to like the sensitivity piece, and it depends on the type of person that you are and what you're looking for in a mentor. If you don't have people who can be real with you, I think you're cheating yourself out of what a mentor is supposed to be, or what the process of mentoring looks like, because not everything is sunshine and rainbows. damn sure not in the field of law, especially if you're a minority. Regardless, not everything is going to be on the up and up for you. And sometimes you're going to need somebody who's going to give you that extra push, that extra check to say, I know that you haven't done this, or XYZ, what's going on, right? So evaluate the conversation, evaluate the fruits of the conversation, evaluate how that person made you feel. Because if this is a person that you're considering, if this is a person that you are considering being under for however long, 3 years, law school, beyond and after, you want to be sure that you are being heard, but then you're also listening at the same time. Is what they're saying reasonable for you to listen to, despite all your super sensitivities or despite however it makes you feel? Now, after that, this was, and sometimes still is, the hardest part for me is follow up. Follow up after that meeting. Email, phone call, fun story. So like I said, we're on the couch, give y'all the real. So one of the first black men that I had encountered actually was my faculty advisor, and his name is Professor Chuck Hinton. If anybody is watching this and knows him, you'll understand. When I first met him, technically this was in 2016, but that really doesn't count because that's when I was an undergrad. This is well before I thought about law. So fast forward to law school, when I met him again, he was actually named my faculty advisor, and this was, of course, pre-COVID. So he took me and another fellow 1L to lunch because we were interested in litigation. And so we were sitting at lunch, and dapper man dressing goals. He was just sitting there, and he was just telling us a little bit about like his life, his experiences, his time in practice, like an open book. There wasn't like, we didn't ask questions first. He started out the gate with these stories, and then he started asking us questions. And so while I'm also listening to like the person next to me, I'm paying attention to him, Professor Hinton, because I'm like, okay, all right, so you did this. I kind of know what you've done here at the university, and I'm starting to connect the dots. And I'm like, oh, like he seems like a really cool person. This was in August of 2017. After that, we go back to orientation, and I do not see or talk to him again until maybe September, October of my 1L year, when the idea of mock trial came around for me to want to be a part of one of the competition teams. And before that, like right before we started practices for the BOSA mock trial competition team, he had pulled me into his office one day, and he had asked like, hey, I'm just confused. Why aren't you reaching out? Why don't you reach out? I haven't heard from you. I think that's a little odd. And I mean, I'm not making excuses for myself, but to be fair, 1L year was a lot, right? And I'm getting used to being on campus, again, getting used to this law school course load and all this other stuff. So I'm over here feeding him excuses, essentially, at the end of the day. And for those of you watching, you already know this. Some of you probably know what excuses are. So I'm over here feeding him excuses, and he's just like, okay, I mean, like, the ball's in your court. I can only do so much. And at the time, and this was probably a little bit more childish, and this is a cautionary tale. Yeah, I was like, how dare this black man come down on me for wanting to be like about my academics and do like what I'm supposed to be here for. I don't have time to like call you up on the phone. I don't have time to send an email. I don't have time to do these things. Not thinking. I won't say I didn't know. Not thinking about like what needs to be done later. Like the fact that I'm at a predominantly white institution, there's only X amount of people who look like me, smaller X amount of people who are actually on the faculty and staff. So not having somebody in my corner already is a detriment to me, and I wasn't thinking. So we go through the mock trial thing. We're doing it. We're practicing. I see him. So I'm like, okay, you know, I'm in his face a little bit more now. He sees me. We're having conversations. We're talking. We're good. We weren't. And it was really because, and this goes back to something I said earlier, feeding the relationship, right? A mentorship is just like a relationship. It's just like a friendship, your love life, whatever that looks like, your family, whatever you define in your relationship pool, that mentor needs to go in there too. Because when you get a mentor, if you get somebody who's actually genuinely interested in who you are as a person and wants to see you succeed, you have to pour into that relationship. You have to build that relationship in order for it to continue to grow, in order for you both to continue to grow, and for that person to be the most effective mentor that they can to you, right? I somehow, some way, missed this. And this goes back to what I told you guys in the first episode of this season, talking about my 1L job search. So I'm looking for jobs because I didn't reach out to him. And so I'm over here doing everything by myself because that's how I operate. I always feel like I have to do it by myself. And I have a very hard time of asking for help. I don't know if anybody else can relate, but a very hard time asking for help. So it's hard for me to be vulnerable with people out the gate, but then I also shut down because I never want to feel like people feel like I'm using them or inconveniencing them or hitting them up when I need something. So you can kind of hear like how my mind was trained. And this is probably how a lot of people think when it comes to like the whole idea of mentorship and reaching out. And so for me, when I was doing everything by myself, meanwhile, Professor Henson's over here helping people get into big law jobs or like the little public interest things that they're interested in because he knows people and he's connected. I was trying to reinvent the wheel. I was trying to do all these other things when I had somebody who at the time, though probably annoyed with me and probably pissed at me. You can ask him. I'm not putting words in his mouth. I wasn't there and I wasn't thinking about it. So when I came time to apply for the judge job that I talked to you all about, that I shouldn't have got because I screwed that application up royally, he took the time to call me on the phone and ask me, did I apply for the job? Why hadn't he heard from me? Like he pretty much read me to filth, dragged me by the edges, as some of the kids would say these days. And so he had told me to come to his office, I think maybe a day or two later. And so we're sitting in the office and like he gives me the real, like he said, I can't put in a word for you because I don't know you. And I want to pause right there. For anybody listening, the point of a mentor is to, one, not only have somebody who can coach you through these things, but to speak about you in a room that you're not even in. And if you aren't willing to shed your skin and be vulnerable, they can't help you. You won't get far. You can't do this on your own. If you look like me, you can't do this on your own. And I mean that in both ways. But even for those people who don't look like me, you can't do this on your own. I can't stress that enough. You need help. You need people to advocate for you. That's why letters of recommendation are so important. That's what I'm gonna get off the soapbox and we're gonna get back to this. So we're talking and he tells me, okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna call him back and I'm gonna tell him why you want this job and all this other stuff. And then the rest is on you. Needless to say, when I got to the interview, I got read to filth and dragged by the edges once again. And it was a black male judge. So like I told you guys, I have 3 black men in my network, confidently, that I can reach out to and do that. This was the third. The first one being the associate dean of Mizzou Law, Dean Mitchell. And then Professor Henson. And now we have Judge Epps. And he, I think Judge Epps and Professor Henson hold a very close tie, neck and neck, for my hardest mentors that I have, but they're the most real with me in terms of when I'm messing up, when I'm not on my stuff. That entire summer I worked with the judge. I had to be on it. One, because I'm working for a fellow black man who has done it all, had this career, and not in every respect, but has some of the things that I want to have by the time I get to where he is. So I'm trying to impress him. At the same time, I'm also trying to make up for the mistake that I had coming into the door. So here I am playing catch up. And I will never forget, during the summer, he pulled me into his office one day and we were talking, because this was around the time that 2Ls apply for jobs for the summer after. And I let him read my resume, let him read my cover letter. And he said, the person that is right here is not the person that I met that day when I interviewed you. And that, one, was a wake-up call for me, because it's like, damn. Well, one, I wonder what you were thinking about me then. But then two, okay, this lets me know that we're getting somewhere. But then he was very honest with me. And this is something that I think I appreciated the most. He told me at the time that he wasn't sure if I could get like the Big Law job, because he came from Big Law. He knows what Big Law is looking for in terms of grades, GPA. I had most of the boxes checked. The only thing that was on the cusp of the struggle was the grades. And so him being honest with me was something I knew, but it's different when you hear it from somebody else's mouth, right? But I didn't let it stop me. And I told him respectfully, I understand where he is coming from, but I have to at least try, right? So that's the other thing. Having mentors who can be real with you, you don't have to like everything they're saying. You don't have to follow everything they're saying. But at the end of the day, he had my best interest at heart based off what he saw. Now, was he wrong? Technically, no, because no, I am not in any Big Law job. But I ended up with a corporate job, and that's because, due in part to the work that I had to bust my ass. I had to bust my ass with that man to prove to myself that I could do the work, that I belonged. And when I finally got comfortable and he got a little bit more comfortable with me and he started sharing some stories and really relating, I saw how far I had to go. Like it was cool that I had got to where I was, but it was a reality check for me personally of like the stuff that I have to do. And I think that's something that's very important. Whoever you all find in a mentor, I don't say compare often, but you have to pay attention to like, here's what they did, here's what they're saying, here's where I am, and here's what I can do. All right, guys, got a little deep, need to reel it back. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back, and I'm going to walk you through a few more things that I think are important when looking for a mentor, and then we are out. So BRB. All right, so we're back. Like I was saying, so I really appreciate those three black men. Like, I talked to Dean Mitchell. I will jump in his office and I'll cry sometimes. I'll stress my frustrations. I will call Professor Henson and we will talk about just like school, what's next, what's coming. I'll talk to the judge every blue moon. I just know he's a busy man, so we don't talk as often, and that's partly my fault. Like I said, I can own my stuff now. But we talk just to see like how he's doing, life updates, things like that. So with that in mind, let's dive back into this list of what I think is probably some of the best practices when looking for mentorship, right? So the next one is let that relationship grow. So I was saying earlier that you have to treat mentors and like the mentorship process kind of like any relationship that you have. Honestly, you have to let it. It's like you have to let it. You can't force it. If you force it, it's just weird. Then you're just like this rigid person that's like, oh yes, Mr. So and so, I have to do this, or Mr. So and so, like how, like what? No, that's not. Relax. Wusa. So just the best way for me to put this is you're not gonna get it right. And it's okay. It's okay for you not to get it right. You don't get it right in your personal relationships. You surely will not get it right in some of your professional relationships. Your mentorship is not any different. You're not gonna get it right. And if you have the right mentor, they will understand. Another fun story. So again, for those of you who know these people, don't tell them to watch this because I'm embarrassed. But Makita and Joe, both two Mizzou grads, right? And the relationship I have with them both are different. Like I had knew Joe and Makita both when I was in undergrad, but I had talked to Joe more because I had met him and he seemed like a cool guy. So he and I had conversations while I was a 1L about like some of the classes I was taking, all this other stuff. And I was just like, bro, like shit is bonkers. Help me. But then I remember distinctly, because I hadn't had many conversations with Makita, outside of like, sometimes I'll hit her up and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Or like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What do you think? And she would scold me when I didn't do some things. But homecoming 2017, she came back and she came to one of the Mizzou Law tailgates and saw her. And she was like, so no, I don't want to talk to you. And I'm just like, well, damn, what did I do? And she was like, well, you have my number, you have my email and stuff, but you don't reach out. And you don't act like you only do this. And I mean, she wasn't wrong. Like again, I've been read and dragged to filth in 3 years. So I'm really trying to help somebody not get read and dragged to filth because I've done it for you guys. Learn from me, please. She was basically telling me how like I hadn't hit her up, hadn't talked to her. I don't ask for anything and it doesn't make sense to her. I distinctly remember this. This is a quote. It doesn't make sense to me that you have all of this opportunity, but you don't use it. Drag me, sis. Drag me. And I was like, well, I want to do better. And she's like, yeah, I'm not going to hear that. Words are words. I believe in action. You want to know what I did? Put my ass to the pavement once again. And I started hitting her up more. We started talking. And now, like, if I have questions about anything, first person. Hey, so when I was working for the judge and I was starting the process for OCIs for my 2L year, OCIs are on-campus interviews. We will talk about those in a later episode. But when I started the process for that, first person I hit up because I know she had done big law work and like that was her thing for a while before transitioning to her professorship. And I said, hey, what do these people look for? Like, what do law firms look for? She helped me with a little mock interview. She gave me questions to consider and ask, like, I'm going to take my little side note rant here. Black women, something else. Marvelous. Honestly, I think out of my network, outside of the 3 black men that I have, and outside of some of the other practicing professionals who are white, and I'll get to this point near the end. But for the black women that I have in my network, that's the majority of my network, and I'm eternally grateful to them. One, you'll find that women in general are very caring about whoever they invest their time in. And for the women in my network, 1, thank you. 2, they want you to succeed, and they're not going to pull any punches when it comes to what you are and what you're not doing. And from Judge Cynthia Cobbs to Miss Murdaugh to Makita Brantley to Devin Maddox, Katrina Jones. I'm missing some people. Please forgive me. Your shout out is somewhere around. Sharon Ware, I have to thank them because, but for them, I honestly can't say my head would be where it is now in terms of how I think, how I process, and how I approach this. And their styles are different. I don't know if yeah. So people, you will find some people when you're looking for mentors and things, some people are like, oh, well, I don't want to mentor you unless you can do this for me. Or like, well, what am I getting out of this process? And that has always rubbed me the wrong way. For anybody looking, maybe wants me to mentor them. I have two formal mentees right now. Maybe a third, depending on, the day of the week, however she feels about me. Because I have to keep it real with her. I don't need anything from them. I don't ask them for anything. I don't want anything from them. And part of the reason I started this podcast, I want people to grow and evolve from the mistakes that I made by avoiding some, and some mistakes are unavoidable, and learning from them, talking through them. They can't do nothing for me. They can't get me published in a journal. There's so many things right now that they're not able to do. And I understand that. I get that. I don't care. Some people will look to you to see what you can do for them. How can you benefit them? Where is this going? And in some respects, that's cool, but then it becomes kind of abusive depending on the person. I try to keep it real with y'all. And there's just some people who genuinely have that mindset because all they are out for is themselves and advancing themselves. They're not really out to advance the career of another young professional. And so I would just say, note of caution, beware. And some people are easier to spot than others, but be aware. And this goes back to something I said earlier. It's all about the feel that you have after you meet with somebody, after you talk with somebody. They don't always have to make you feel good. Sometimes I need to be checked. Sometimes I'm sure some of y'all need to be checked. But is the genuine interest there? Is there a genuine want to see you succeed and to put your name in rooms that you're technically not qualified for at the time, right? Because let me tell you, that's going to matter a lot. Moving on, again, off my soapbox. So my next thing that I want you guys to consider is the feeling of being challenged. I don't understand how people want mentors who are just sunshine and rainbows, or, oh my God, you're doing amazing, or maybe you should consider this. No, you're doing a disservice to yourself. You need people who are going to sit you down. Look you in your face and tell you straight up, hey, you're wrong, or you're not doing this right. Again, it's all in the delivery, but you're fucking up, respectfully. And you need to do better. Or this is what you need to be doing. Or, hey, I noticed that your grades are here. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you trying this? Maybe you should cut this. Some people feel like they're being attacked when people talk to them like that. And again, it depends on your super sensitivities, all of the things considered. You know what works best for you. But for me, even when I'm just like, oh, whoa, you don't know me, relax. It makes me take inventory of like what my priorities are at that time, and it helps me shift accordingly. Some of us need to shift. And having a mentor who is willing to give you the real, like I told you, my judge told me I didn't qualify for those big law jobs at the time. Okay, I still put my foot out there anyway. But he gave me, he pushed me, he challenged me. He gave me the real on that. Makita and Joe both told me, apply for law review. Here I am sitting here like, I can't write. And for those of you who've seen this, I told you all, that was my biggest struggle coming into law school. I can't write. I don't know what I'm doing. Here I am now, associate editor-in-chief. You need people who can see the potential in you and know when you're not living up to your potential and push you to it. If you have people who are always going to say, be yes men, or always in your corner, always, I guess, aiding or stroking your ego, you're doing yourself a disservice because, truth be told, you're not the shit. You're really not. You're trying to be. You want to get there, but there's some things you have to learn, and there's growth that has to be had. Everybody can grow, everybody can learn, and that's the best part about having mentors who have been in your shoes and being able to keep you going. So, something to think about. Some people don't. Whatever. And then one of the last two things I'll say on this is press into the relationship. Again, mentors are just like any other relationship that you'll have in life. If you're not pouring into it, if you're not trying, what's the point? These people that you look up to, or in some cases maybe on the same level with, they can't help you if they don't know you. And as you guys heard from my earlier story, that was my initial problem. I wasn't pouring into anything. I was very me, very on the go, very wrapped up and self-absorbed in what I had going on. And I mean, okay, I get it. Depending on what year you are in school, you have stuff going on. School is stressful. Hell, life might be stressful. Things might be falling apart. Okay. But at the end of the day, it's nothing to send a text, leave a voicemail, 5-minute conversation, send an email saying, hey, how are you? Just thought you were on my mind. Wanted to check you out, see how you're doing. I also lied. I have, sitting here, I was thinking, I have 5 black men in my network. Shout out to Dean and Brandon. Don't know how. Sorry, but yeah. So being able to pour into those relationships, because for the longest, that was my problem. Even when I got like the mentors or I had like the connections, I wasn't doing my part in building the relationship. So for a long time, a lot of them stood stagnant. A lot of them, it's like a plant. You have to water it. You have to water it. You have to feed it in order for it to grow. And so we were very one-dimensional, very I won't even say school related because we really didn't talk about much. But once I understood, and it took me receiving a lot of, I would say, no's, a lot of slaps in the face, a lot of negative things had to happen for me to like really wake up to the idea of, okay, I need help. And it's not like saying I need help is not a weak thing. And I think that's how a lot of us look at it. It's not. It's acknowledging that you have limits, that you can only do so much. You can only take yourself so far. Sometimes you need help to open another door, to push you a little bit further. And that's where a mentor comes in. But they can't help you if you aren't helping them get to know you and putting yourself out there. That goes back to that whole vulnerability thing. Like, just be yourself. And I think that's where a lot of people get this misconstrued. When they're looking for mentors, they want to put up this wall, this facade of like, oh, I am X, Y, Z, and I'm just, this strapping young future individual. What? No. I mean, like, okay, but no. Like, who are you really? I'm Phelan Simpkins from Chicago, Illinois. 3L, University of Missouri. Eventually want to work some litigation opportunities. Okay. That's who I am professionally. Who am I for real? As you all have seen, I'm a mess. I enjoy this. I'm goofy. I sometimes take on too much onto my plate. I like to have my hand in a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But at the end of the day, to my core, I want to help people and I want to elevate people. I want to advance their purpose, their brand, and help them get to where they want to be. When you can start having conversations like that with people who are on an elevated playing field, you start to crack open a shell that allows them to see a little bit more, to start digging, to start finding the rope of pulling out that personality. So when they're at a job function, when they're at a gala, when they hear that somebody's looking for like a summer associate or like a new person, you're the first person on their mind, because it's like, oh yeah, so-and-so wants to do this. Maybe they're interested. You get a quick text message. Hey, so-and-so's applying. You want me to put in a good word? Well, somebody has their application open. You want me to put in a good word? Or, hey, I'm applying for this job. Do you know anybody? Like, it's things like that that I think make the whole mentorship thing worthwhile, because then you have a network. And I know you guys hear this all the time. Your network is your net worth. And I started with maybe a drop in the bucket, maybe a penny. You know what? I'm just say a quarter. Just say a quarter. And then from there I had to build. And I'm constantly still building. I don't get this thing right. Even now, there's some people, as I'm sitting here talking to you all, that I've realized I have neglected to call and or text. And they will be hearing from me shortly after this airs. But it's really just being able to be vulnerable and putting yourself out there. And once you're out there, being able to, continue on. Which brings me to the last point. Commit to the process. It is hard. If you think that you're just going to walk out one day and find like somebody and say, hey, I want you to mentor me. Sure. May work for you. Low chance scenario, maybe 40%. But in order to have an effective lifelong mentor, somebody that you can actually talk to, somebody that you can actually bounce ideas off of, somebody that can invest in you and you can invest in them, you have to commit. You have to make the phone calls, send the emails, do the text messages. You can't see those things as being inconvenient. You have to see them as a necessary step. Like you'll sit here and text your friends all day until you're blue in the face, or you'll be on the phone, FaceTime with Bae, all this other stuff. Why can't you invest in your professional relationships and your professional future by making that phone call, sending that text message, sending that email? Because it helps build. Like I said, it helps pour in. You have to commit to the process, and it is a process, but it's something that once you're in it and once you find your groove, you got it. You'll find that those people will start touching you with more people, and then it becomes easier to connect because there's a commonality, there's a thread. And then, eventually you're probably somebody's CEO. And then at that point, you took all these tips and you're going to hire me. You're going to do it because I helped you get to wherever you are. See what I'm talking about? That's people taking credit for your work. See, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to do that, but hire me. Seriously. Yeah, no. So yeah, guys, those are my tips, my biggest tips, I should say, for the whole process of looking for a mentor. When you're thinking about mentorship and things, you'd be very surprised on who is actually willing to help you. Like I was telling somebody this last week during an interview that I have no problem helping people. Send me an email, shoot me a DM. Of course, make sure that you're coming correct. But I have no problem helping somebody learn and get to where I was, because I was the only Black biochemistry major in undergrad. I'm one of the only Black men in my graduating class for law school. Like, the pool is small as it is. 5% for minority attorneys. Yeesh. So I want to help you get to where you want to go. But going back to a point that I was going to make earlier, not every mentor I have look like me. One of my favorite mentors currently is a white man named Jeffrey. And I met Jeffrey when I was interviewing for State Farm, and I feel like I told you guys this, but Jeffrey is one of the coolest people, one of the most down-to-earth people, but he's also very real and candid, and that's something that I appreciate. And that relationship came organically from the first time I met him in our interview, and we were talking and we hit it off, all the way up to working under him in the summertime. Jeffrey has been genuinely invested in where I go and what I do next. And for me, that's the intro right there. That's how you get my attention. I didn't really look for it, and it just happened and it fell in my lap. And then I also met Todd, who was my writing coach at the time, and he started, and like we text every so often, and we just check in. Like people like that helps me. That puts my name in rooms that I probably don't even know exist right now. And I think that's just something to keep in mind. Don't limit yourself to people who look like you. You want to have a vast network because there are so many things that you don't know, or so many rooms that you have not walked into yet, that by limiting yourself to this pool won't get you anywhere. And then you can't then reach back and help somebody else because you've limited yourself so narrow in scope. Soapbox moment, but that's something to consider. So I really appreciate everybody in my network. All those people who have pushed me, prodded me, supported me, everything. I really appreciate that. I have mentors that aren't even in the law, right? Because I had them before undergrad. And then I met some people who were just like genuine folks who care about my success. But also we have like that relationship where I can do some things for them and they can do some things for me, but it's healthy. Pay attention to healthy relationships, and once you find them, help them grow. So again, no listener letters because this episode was pretty much a long listener letter because I've received this question several times and I've been ignoring it. But I thought it was important to at least give it to you guys now. From the comfort of the couch, another Red Table Talk exclusive. Well, Tan Couch exclusive. I really got to name this thing for something because every time I sit on this, I feel like I have to give you guys the real. But I really appreciate you guys for tuning in to this episode of How to Get Away with the JD. Hope you guys learned something. And then again, for anybody who has listened to this, and if you're a black man pre-law, if you're currently in law school and you feel like you don't have the support system, you don't have the network, and you just want somebody to talk to or at least bounce some ideas off of, hit me up. My the page's IG is How to Get Away with the JD. DM the page, talk to me. I'll talk to you back. Follow us, and then or send me an email at alexanderthegreatpod, POD, @gmail.com, and I'll respond to you, and we can chop it up. We can set up a Zoom, and we can figure out what's working, what's not working. If I can help you in any way, let me know. I want to be a resource to you guys. That's part of the reason this podcast does exist. So again, shout out to you guys for sticking with me through season 2 so far. There's a couple of interesting episodes coming up, and I definitely want to give you guys, especially my 1Ls, some tips going into OCI season. So you guys will be seeing those episodes real soon. So stay tuned. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch on YouTube at Alexander the Great for media production. And we will see you guys